Hi, everybody. This is State Senator Mallory McMorrow coming to you with This Week with Mallory. It's a little bit of a somber live stream, but we will go ahead and get into it. So welcome to those of us who are joining today. It has been a while since we have been able to do a live stream. So rules of the road around here. This is something we do just about every week that the Senate is in session, where I come to talk directly to you live across Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This is an opportunity for you to hear directly from me what is happening in the state, what is happening in the legislature, and we also share good news that's happening in the district. And I think this week that is especially important. This is also an opportunity for live Q&A. So regardless of what platform you are tuning in on, you can ask any question when we get to the Q&A portion. I just ask that when we do, you state your full name in case that is not obvious from your username, what city you live in, and then go ahead with your question. So first, I want to start with where we've been. So many people may know the legislature has a number of breaks where we're not in session throughout the year. And that doesn't mean we're not working. That actually means we get to spend more time in our districts actually working on legislation, working on research, talking to constituents than we do when we are in Lansing. So we had Thanksgiving break last week. The week before that was hunting break, which is an annual tradition in the legislature and has been for a very, very long time. But prior to that, I was actually out in addition the week before because, as many of you may or may not have heard, I contracted COVID-19, as did my now 10-month-old, 9-month-old at the time, daughter Noah. So wanted to share a video that I shared when I got back to session and share a little bit of my own experience, because I had a lot of people reach out to me and ask a lot of questions, especially as we are continuing to see COVID-19 throughout our communities. The Omicron variant has been found here in the United States. And as we head into the holidays, a lot of people had questions. So sharing in the hopes that my experience, my family's experience can be informational and helpful to anybody out there. So let me tune into our presentation here. All right, getting it working this time. And we'll share what I said when I got back. As many in this room may know, a few weeks ago, I was absent from this chamber when I contracted COVID-19 from my 9-month-old daughter. And I'm glad to be back and recovered, and thank everybody who reached out to check in on both of us. But I rise today to share my family's experience as we head into the holidays with the hopes to inspire and encourage people to take protective action for their families. I was here a few weeks ago when I got a text from our nanny, who is amazing, wonderful, and an absolute lifesaver for a married couple with 2 chaotic jobs and unpredictable schedules, where she said she changed our daughter and could not smell the poop. Pretty solid indicator. She immediately took one of the at-home COVID tests that we have and tested positive and put on a mask right away. I came home later that day and my daughter seemed fine, happy, her normal self. But within a couple of days, she was sick, and a couple of days after that, so was I. So we know where she got it from and where I got it from. Our nanny's husband is an ER resident, working tireless hours as residents do, and he faces an overwhelming ER, like many of our medical frontliners are around the state. and he contracted COVID from somebody in the hospital. So multiple breakthrough cases passed from somebody on the front lines in the hospital to our nanny to my 9-month-old, who, like all babies, is unable to get vaccinated, and to myself. By some stroke of luck, my husband had gotten his booster shot just a week before Noah was exposed to COVID. And he never got sick. So he was able to step up and take on both the parenting responsibilities of myself and him so that I could rest and recover. I know that a lot of us are looking forward to gathering with our loved ones this year. I'm looking forward to getting back to my family on the East Coast, many of whom are immunocompromised. So we'll just encourage, I know that one family's experience is not scientific research, but I'm really grateful that my husband got his shot. I'm really grateful that once we knew we were exposed, we wore masks and we're safe around each other, and we've come out of it better. My daughter had a really rough 72 hours. If anybody in this room has seen The Exorcist, you can imagine what that looked like. But I'm glad she rebounded. And I hope that others can learn from our experience and head into this holiday protecting their loved ones, knowing that the actions that we take, whether or not we feel we're protected, do impact others in ways that we may not realize. Thank you very much, and I ask that my remarks be printed in the journal.
Thank you, Sandra.
As many in this room may know, one of these days we will figure out how to do that and not have the video repeat itself. But in the meantime, this is a two-person operation over here, so bear with us and our technology challenges. So we'll move on into additional news. I'm going to get back to sharing my screen here so you can see a common question that we have had for months here in our live streams is asking for an update on Danny Fenster. Danny Fenster is local here, a Huntington Woods resident, graduated from Berkeley schools, is a journalist, and had been detained in Myanmar for, I believe it was 197 days or so, and charged with crimes that really weren't crimes. Journalism is not a crime, and Myanmar was taken over in a military coup a few months ago, and really started cracking down unfairly on journalists, on anybody who's critical of the government. And it took a turn for the worst a few weeks ago when we had learned that Danny had been sentenced to years in prison in Myanmar, and it didn't look good. So it was such a relief for family, community members, loved ones, all of us who have been following this story and sometimes feeling helpless and wishing we could do more, that Danny Fenster was released and is home now. And it was really incredible. So Congressman Andy Levin, who's my congressman here in the 9th District, has been instrumental in this. And he was at a press conference with Danny when Danny got home. And what was so moving to me is, after going through this harrowing experience, he didn't skip a beat. Danny was already talking about the fact that we are going to mobilize to help more people who are imprisoned unjustly, people who are journalists, doctors, teachers, and that is a spirit I think is inspirational to all of us. Danny also was present at the menorah lighting, the Menorah in the D celebration, and spoke really eloquently about how he hadn't thought about the timing of his release and the holiday, but given the spirit of the holiday, what a remarkable story and an example of kind of light in the dark and driving forward. So welcome home, Danny. And it's incredible to be able to share a positive turn on that story. And Senator Moss, my colleague, who had introduced a resolution earlier in the Senate to recognize what was happening in Myanmar and encouraging continued public outcry and support, because we understand that gave the State Department and many who were involved kind of the groundswell they needed to negotiate for Danny's release. So thank you to everybody who's continued to ask us about Danny and to encourage us to keep telling his story, for his family, who really immediately stepped up and encouraged this entire campaign around Danny's release. And it's wonderful news as we head into the holidays. Next on our agenda is wanting to touch on the news in Oxford. This is a really, really hard week to enter into. And some of you may know, but many of you may not, that it's really personal to me. So one of my closest friends growing up, somebody who I spent a lot of time with at their family's house almost every weekend, having pancake breakfasts. Her older brother, so somebody I knew fairly well, was shot and killed in the Virginia Tech shooting, and that was now over 15 years ago. And it is devastating that this happened so much closer to home here. I, even being the friend of somebody who lost a family member, but knowing how close that was and seeing the impact to our friends and our community, and that it's an impact that never leaves you. It's a hurt that never leaves you. And it's something that nobody should ever go through. I've seen that impact firsthand, and it hurts knowing that today there are countless family members and classmates and friends and teachers who feel that hurt, just that deep hurt, and will know it for the rest of their lives. I spoke to an Oxford dad last night who had called our office in response to a speech that I had given, just in tears. And we talked for a little while, and he mentioned that he has already been in contact with some parents from Parkland, and that they are now part of a network of parents who have lost children in school shootings, which I almost didn't know how to respond to, because on one hand, I'm glad that there are people who relate to this experience, because it's such a unique experience to help others through it, but also it's a network that shouldn't exist. And it does, and it's growing. And as I was speaking to him, he mentioned that now I think it's up to over 100,000 kids have been impacted by school shootings since Columbine. And it's a number that keeps growing. And we know that while school shootings grab the headlines because of how horrific they are, school is supposed to be a place that is safe and for learning and where you see your friends. It's not nearly the whole impact of gun violence. On Thanksgiving here on the edge of Royal Oak was a story of a man who shot and killed his mother, who's in her early 40s, on the way back from a Thanksgiving dinner. Earlier this year in Clawson, a domestic violence situation escalated, and a mother's boyfriend shot and killed the woman's teenage daughter. And it happens every single day, and it's going to continue to happen. So I wanted to address it and share what I shared this week in response to one of my colleagues. So bear with me, but I think it's important to kind of share the entire speech, and then we can go from there. Yesterday, when asked by a reporter if the legislature would take any action in the wake of the horrific school shooting in Oxford, the senator from the 16th district said, quote, "If we get obsessed with eliminating the risks, we'll evolve into a country that we don't recognize." Last night, I spoke with a group of Cub Scouts over Zoom, and one child asked, how could a 15-year-old even get a gun? So I was going to wait on these remarks to help give the community space to grieve. But in the wake of such callous remarks here in this body, remarks that imply that children killing children is simply the price that we pay in this country, I must rise today. But is anyone in this room truly surprised? For 3 years, I have stood up in this chamber year after year after year to introduce a resolution merely to recognize Gun Violence Awareness Month. And year after year after year, not only has this resolution not been adopted, the majority hasn't even let us vote on it. Year after year after year, I've stood up here merely to ask that we, as the Michigan Senate, are aware of the issue of gun violence. Are we aware now? Is it close enough to home? And does it even matter? Because I can tell you from personal experience what it feels like when a mass shooting impacts you, someone you love, takes someone you know, completely upends and devastates your friends, their families, and their lives forever. It is a feeling that no one should share. But this morning, countless friends, classmates, family members, teachers, staff, community members now know that same feeling, and they will know it forever. I listened and I watched national news cover this story, and the refrain that commonly started these reports: another school shooting, this time in Michigan. Another, this time. Common language because we all know that there will be a next one, and the one after that, and the one after that, that this is the country that we recognize today. And every time we're told that now is not the time to talk about policy change, now is not the time to push an agenda. Every time it's not the time for the past 22 years since Columbine. If not now, then when? Because this week, a child brought a gun to school and killed 4 other children. Bridge Magazine yesterday reported that this legislature has blocked dozens of gun reform bills this year alone, including bills to create new criminal penalties for adults who fail to keep weapons out of the hands of minors. Would tougher laws have prevented this 15-year-old from getting access to his father's gun? I don't know. But I do know that doing nothing didn't stop this from happening. And if we continue to do nothing, then it will keep happening again and again and again. Another shooting, this time. This is the only country in the world where this regularly happens. We are killing each other. Children are killing children. We live in a country where there are more guns than people. And anytime anyone brings up any ideas to help stop gun violence and put safety measures in place, we hear outcries of freedom. We hear that it is a right, that it shall not be infringed. But what about the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Why are children's lives worth less than guns? Because if I'm not mistaken, ever since the NRA changed course after Columbine by telling you that your rights are under attack and that someone is coming for your guns, has anyone ever come for your guns? Instead, we've seen record gun sales year after year after year, meaning there are more guns in our communities, and that easy access to firearms has created a reality where children are killing children. And instead of addressing the root cause, we have been training children on drills to make themselves less likely to be killed. Are you in this job to represent the people that you protect to serve, or are you here to sell guns? We can't even recognize gun violence in this chamber. Wouldn't dare, right? So I'm not going to stand up here today and ask you to do something because you've already made that choice. But if you're not going to do anything, then get out of the way so that some of us can at the very least try. So definitely a hard thing to talk about. It is a speech that I've given that has made an impact. And I actually wrote a lot of that the night of the shooting and thought about giving it the next day, and talked to my colleague, Senator Bayer, and some others, and decided against it because I recognize, as somebody who knows a lot of people who were impacted by this a long time ago, that I have already been through kind of that entire process of grappling with it and grieving and working through it. And when it happens again, I'm immediately angry. And so I waited and was going to continue to wait until we announce more on actions that we have taken and will be taking, and wanted to give that time. But as soon as our Senate Majority Leader, I think really callously, within 24 hours, indicated that the legislature would do nothing, I had to respond. And I really appreciate those who have reached out to us, those who are directly impacted, who live in Oxford, who are going through this right now, who have said thank you and shared your stories and what you're going through right now. It's an unimaginable hurt, but it really means a lot because I I struggle with these things, with how to respond and what to say, and I didn't want to create any more harm or damage, but it sounds like a lot of people have resonated, and I think a lot of people are where I am and are demanding action because it has been 22 years and nothing has happened to change this or change kind of our epidemic of gun violence, and we will continue working on that. So Liz is going to drop a link in the comments. I know a lot of people are wondering how to help Oxford. So we will share a free press article where they've been collecting and kind of consolidating all of the efforts that are being put together to help families in the community come together and heal through this. And thank everybody who wants to do something and help this community get through this, but also ensure that it doesn't happen to anybody else again. And I think fundamentally that is our job as legislators, even when it's hard. All right. We also wanted to run through shifting gears into things that happened in the legislature because we did vote on other bills. So we are going to update you on a few that we think may be of interest. So going to go ahead and share the screen again. First is the HOPE Act. This is by Representative Felicia Brabeck over in the House, and the bill amends the Public Health Code to allow HIV positive individuals to donate organs to HIV positive individuals under certain circumstances. This has long been an issue where, I think that the stigma around those who are HIV positive and who have suffered through the AIDS epidemic have not been able to become organ donors like many of us are. And this is common sense legislation where if it is an organ donor donating organs to somebody who is also HIV positive and mitigating that risk of transferring HIV, then it should absolutely be allowed. And this passed the Senate, I believe unanimously, and continues to move on. It's great news, and I'm thankful to Rep. Brabeck for bringing this forward and for everybody in the Senate for supporting this bill. Next up on redistricting. So you've heard us talk about the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission, and Senator Ananick spoke up on this bill in particular. But for those who may not have been following the redistricting process as closely as those of us who will be impacted are, and people who are interested in redistricting and gerrymandering, it's been a fascinating process. So the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission is made up of regular citizens who have been drawing our new congressional and legislative maps live. You've actually been able to tune in and watch the mapping process. But a few weeks ago, in the wake of hearing feedback, particularly from Detroit residents who are concerned about the Voting Rights Act and making sure that majority minority districts are accurately represented, the commission held a closed door meeting to discuss the feedback and got a lot of pushback. This is something that was put into place, was voted on by voters in 2018 to be a transparent process because historically it hasn't been transparent. It has been a process that has happened behind closed doors, that has been done by the legislature. And there was some confusion and different interpretations of who qualifies under the Open Meetings Act and who doesn't. So this was broadly bipartisan. We passed out a bill that would prohibit the Independent Citizens Redistricting Commission from meeting in a closed session, that if they are all meeting together, they do fall under the Open Meetings Act and need to meet publicly. But Senator Ananick, and I agree with him, as sort of a qualifier for our vote on this, I think his quote was, even on the commission's best day, or even on the commission's worst day, is better than the legislature's worst day on redistricting in the past, because they've done incredible work and it's been really fascinating to watch. And I'm very optimistic about what it means for representation in the state, an accurate representation, and hopefully our ability to get things done. So, I think this was a misstep by the commission and they were advised, I think, incorrectly. So don't want to take this as a knock on the entire commission, but do think that it was a clarification bill to put into statute that this would not be allowed moving forward. All right, next up, First Responders Kids Bill. So Representative Matt Kolazar introduced a bill which amends the Police Officers and Firefighters Survivor Tuition Grant Act to remove the means test for eligibility for the grants. The grants guarantee that a child of a police officer or firefighter that loses their life in the line of duty can go to a state university or community college tuition free. And, this is common sense stuff. If you've got somebody who is a first responder who has died in the line of duty, you as a child, it's unimaginable to lose a parent. But this is something that was, as you can see, unanimous, and something we were really proud to vote on. Finally, the 911 bill, this is House Bill 5026, would extend the sunset on the Emergency 911 Enabling Act, which is a pretty wonky kind of thing. But it would amend various acts, including increasing the prepaid wireless surcharge from 5% to 6% and allowing Treasury to audit the accounts of prepaid wireless sellers. So this is, a tiny, tiny, tiny fee that is on all of our cell phone bills every month, but the cost of administering these services has gone up. So this is just a common sense piece of legislation to make sure that fee is in line with what it actually costs to effectively run 911 services here in the state of Michigan, and passed with overwhelming bipartisan support as well. All right. Something I think we all need this week is good news. We wanted to make sure we get it into this live stream. First up, I love this. I think it's so fun. Anytime there is public art, especially public art that involves kids, I absolutely love it. This is Rochester Hills Paint the Plows, and it returns for its 9th year. The Rochester Hills Department of Public Services partnered with Avondale School District and Rochester Community Schools to add seasonal charm to the city's snow plow vehicles. Students in grades 5 through 12 were invited to come to the department's garage to decorate the fleet for the winter season. Designs are 10 feet wide. I can't even stretch my arms that wide, and 3 feet high, and just super fun to see these decorated snow plows moving throughout the community as we get rid of snow this season. And just what a fun way for kids to participate in their community. Next up, I saw so many pictures from people who went out to the tree lighting last night here in Royal Oak, but it is Royal Oak's Centennial anniversary. So there's a 2-day downtown winter wonderland celebration of the century. Started last night, continues tonight at the Royal Oak Civic Center. We will also be commemorating the new Centennial Commons Park in downtown Royal Oak, which is very, very exciting. There is a whole huge list of fun events to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the city, and the start of the holiday season. So go check it out. It looked great last night. Sorry that I wasn't able to attend. It looked really fun. There's a lot of things that just coincide with Noah's bedtime. So, we got to pick and choose on which things I get out on and which things my husband gets out on, because baby takes precedent. So congratulations, Royal Oak. I can't wait to see what the next 100 years bring. And then lastly, there are a ton of other holiday happenings that we will be sharing over this week, next week, as the holidays are upon us. But tonight, the Birmingham tree lighting, and Liz will be dropping in the comments more holiday events that we are aware of right now. But everybody is invited to join Santa VIP and Birmingham's mayor for entertainment and the lighting of the 35-foot holiday tree adorned with over 40,000 lights. As you can see here in the picture, it is absolutely beautiful, and it will be 6 to 6:45 in downtown Birmingham. And with that ends our pre-scheduled program, and I will go ahead and bring on Liz, our Director of Constituent Services and Outreach, live from Lansing.
Live from Lansing with, again, the beautiful art I provide to this coffee hour.
So I figured that comments and questions are probably going to be pretty heated this week. So just to reiterate kind of general rules of the road, if you do have a question, we are taking questions. If people just want to comment, we're not going to be reading those out loud. But if you do have a question, please state your full name if that's not obvious by your username, what city you live in, and then go ahead with your question. We have never filtered or moderated questions, but if there is anything that is just hateful. We have gotten an uptick of hateful calls and comments and emails to our office. We're not going to give that a platform. So if you do have a genuine question, please ask. This is the forum for that. And Liz, what do we got?
Yeah, we've been receiving a different, level of comments this week, and there's been just a lot of support as well, especially for your speech. But I do not see any questions in the comments below as of yet. But I've listed a lot of the stuff in our comments about holiday happenings and such, so maybe
Well,
they're
great.
checking those out.
Well, good. Well, I hope people get out and are safe for these holidays. I was saddened to learn that the Rochester Christmas parade was canceled. I think in the wake of the horrifying holiday parade from a few weeks ago, where somebody fleeing a crime scene in a vehicle, struck and injured and killed kids and families and people in a parade. So, it's a scary time that we live in right now. So disappointed to see that, but I'm glad to see that there are so many holiday events still in the community. We are so much stronger and better when we are there for each other. So I hope people get out and get out and look out for each other and are safe. And we will keep people posted with more. It's been a heavy week for all of us. Liz, what's your advice for winding down for the weekend?
I have asked myself a lot this week because it's been incredibly hard for a multitude of reasons. But I'm spending it with my family this weekend. So surrounding yourself by loved ones and appreciating, that time.
That's the best. This is the time of year to do it. So, like I said at the beginning, we are not a scientific example, but we lived through it. Get your booster shot if you haven't already. I talked to a lot of my family back in just outside of Philly and in New York. Everybody's boosted. Everybody's excited to see each other and do it safely. We know that COVID is still out there. Our hospitals are full and at capacity again, unfortunately, but we know how to do this safely this year. So go see your loved ones, rebuild that energy and do it safely. And we will see you next time.